Hi class, welcome to our videocast for lessons 4.4 to 4.7. This will help you review for your upcoming quiz. If you do not have paper and pencil, please go ahead and get those right now. I'll wait here for you. Okay, let's start with our first lesson, which was lesson 4.4 on finding least common multiple. Do you remember the ladder method that we had used for greatest common factor? Well, we can use that same ladder method to find the least common multiple. If I take my numbers 15 and 12 and I want to find the least common multiple of them, I put them together in my ladder and I ask myself, what can they both be divided by? Well, they can both be divided by 3, so I put it to the left. And then 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now, when we found the greatest common factor, we just multiplied all of the numbers on the left-hand side. So the greatest common factor of 15 and 12 would be 3. But to find the least common multiple, we're going to actually draw an L on the outside of our ladder for least common multiple. And you're going to multiply all the numbers on that L together. 3 times 5 is 15, and 15 times 4 is 60. So the least common multiple of 15 and 12 is 60. There are 4 problems below. Can you go ahead and pause this video cast while you work on them? And I'll be waiting right here for you. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at number 1. The 24 and 36 are the numbers we're finding the least common multiple of, and they can both be divided by 12. 24 divided by 12 is 2, and 36 divided by 12 is 3. And when we multiply those 3 numbers together, 12 times 2 is 24, times 3 is 72. And remember, draw that L on the outside of your ladder to remind you of least common multiple. You might have started with a number different than 12, and that's okay. You could have started with 3, or maybe you started with 4. But no matter how you started, you're still going to end up with the same least common multiple. In number 2, if we take a look at 72 and 96, you want to ask yourself, what can they both be divided by? And 72 and 96 can actually be divided by 3, because I use my divisibility rules to help me. 72 divided by 3 is 24, and 96 divided by 3 is 32. Now 24 and 32 can both be divided, again, by 8. And so I'm going to put the 8 out here, and I would get a 3 and a 4 on the bottom. They cannot be divided any longer, so now I'm going to draw my L across the outside of my ladder, and I'm going to multiply 3 times 8, 8 times 3. I'm going to multiply 3 times 8, which is 24, and then times 3, which is 72, and then times 4, which is 288. So that's our least common multiple of 72 and 96. In number 3, 4 and 15 really have nothing they can both be divided by, so I put a 1 out here. Those numbers are relatively prime. Underneath will be the 4 and the 15, and when I make my L to multiply them all, I'll see that my least common multiple there is 60. Finally, I have 3 numbers to find the least common multiple of. But unlike greatest common factor, I cannot put all 3 in the ladder. So I'm going to choose 2 to work with first. I'm going to work with 8 and 12 first. They can both be divided by 4, and that's going to give me a 2 and a 3. And when I draw my L and I multiply them, that least common multiple is 24. I'm going to take that 24 from here, and I'm going to put it in the box with the number I didn't use, which was the 3. 3 and 24 can both be divided by 3, and when I multiply the numbers outside my ladder together, I get 24, and that's the least common multiple of 3, 8, and 12. I hope you did well with those. Let's take a look at our second one. There we go. I think we jumped right over one there. Let's go back. There we go. Lesson 4.5 is comparing and ordering fractions. I showed you 2 different ways to do this. If I have the 2 fractions that you see above and I'm trying to compare these, I can use cross products, and I would say 12 times 5 would be 60, and 35 times 2 would be 70. And then I would say to myself, 60 is less than 70, so that means that 12/35 is less than 2/5. That's the cross products way of comparing fractions, and that really only works if you're working with 2 fractions. You could also find a common denominator, so I'll say to myself, 12/35 and 2/5, what do they have as a common denominator? Well, I'll look at my largest denominator first, which is 35, Hey, 5 can go into that, so that's going to be my common denominator, and I would see that 12/35 remains the same, and 2/5 becomes 14/35 because I multiply 5 times 7 to give me 35, and then 2 times 7 to give me 14. I would still see that 12/35 is less than 2/5. So you could do that either way. I'm going to have you try the following 3 problems, 5, 6, and 7. Now, number 7, you're going to have to get a common denominator for. Go ahead and pause the video cast while you work. I'll put some additional information up there for you to take a look at as you work, and I'll be waiting right here for you. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at number 5. If I had used the cross products on there, I would have 60 and I would have 56, and that would be greater. If I did common denominators, I'd have 15/24 and 14/24, and it's still greater. For number 6, 7/8 and 5/6, if I do the cross products, I'd have 42 and 40, and that would be greater. If I did common denominators, I'd have 21/24 is greater than 20/24. Finally, in number 7, I have to make them all into common denominators. Remember, I want to see your work done vertically, so I take those fractions and write them vertically like you see here, and I would look for the common denominator. I'd look at my largest denominator, 12. I say they can't all go into 12. 24 is the next multiple. They can't all go into 24, but 36 is the next multiple, and they can all go into that. And so I would make those all equivalent fractions with the denominator of 36, as you see here. That would then tell us from least to greatest that 5/12 is the smallest, then 2/3, then 3/4, and 7/9 is the largest. I hope you did well with these. Let's take a look at our next lesson. And again, we keep jumping ahead today. All right, lesson 4.6 is improper fractions and mixed numbers. To take improper fractions and change those into mixed numbers, and we'll also be changing mixed numbers into improper fractions. So let's look at our mixed number first. In order to do this, we take our denominator 6 and we're going to multiply it times 2. So we'll take 6 times 2, and then I'm going to add 5 onto it. And I'll take 6 times 2 is 12, plus 5 is 17. That's my new numerator, and I use the same denominator. So 2 and 5 sixths is 17 sixths. You take a look at our improper fraction here, and it's improper because the numerator is larger than the denominator. I just turn that fraction sideways and make it into a division problem. 17 divided by 5. That's going to give me a 15 there. When I subtract, I get a 2. My remainder becomes my numerator, 2, and I use the same denominator, 5. So 17/5 would equal 3 2/5. And I can check that by taking 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 still gives me 17/5. I have 4 problems below. Would you convert the mixed numbers into improper fractions and the improper fractions into mixed numbers? Pause this while you work. Okay, welcome back. When I do my problem here, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22/5. In number 9, 3 times 9 is 27, plus 1 gives me 28/9. When I do my division, in number 10, it goes in 1 time with a remainder of 8. So I would have 1 and 8/11. Remember, your remainder is the numerator, and you use the same denominator. Number 11, if I take 22 and divide it by 4, it goes in 5 times. That gives me 20, and I have a remainder of 2. So that would be 2/4, but that fraction is not in lowest terms. We always write our fractions in lowest terms, so it would be 5 1/2. Okay, hope you're doing well with those. Let's take a look at lesson 4.7, writing fractions as decimals. In order to write a fraction as a decimal, we take our fraction, and remember I said if you're not sure, turn it a quarter turn clockwise, and then you can then put in your rest of your division house. So it looks like this. I would put a decimal after the 5. I'm going to bring it straight up, and now 8 goes into 50 6 times. 8 times 6 is 48. When I subtract, I get 2. I add on another 0. 8 goes into that 2 times. That's 16. When I subtract, I get 4. I add on another 0, and I bring that down. and 8 goes into 40 5 times. There's no remainder, so this is a terminating decimal. 5/8 equals 625 thousandths. There are 3 problems here for you to try. Pause the video cast while you try them, and I'll be waiting right here for you. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at 11/6. When I do my division for 11/6, I end up getting 1 and 833 thousandths, but look what's happening here. I could keep going with those 3's forever because I'm still getting this 2 each time. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to put my repeating bar over the 3, and my answer would be 1 and 1.83 with the repeating bar. Let's take a look at number 13. In number 13, when you take 17/8 and divide it, you get 2 and 125 thousandths. It is a terminating decimal, so you would just write it like that. And then finally in number 14, 5/12. When I do my division, I'm noticing the same thing happening here, is that I keep getting the same numbers down here, so my 6 is going to repeat. So I would write that as 0.416 with a repeating bar just over the 6, because that's the only digit that repeats. In lesson 4.7, we also saw how to write decimals as fractions. When I have this decimal, 0.72, I would pronounce that as 72 thousandths, or 72 hundredths, sorry. So I would write it as 72 over 100. I also said to you, if you notice there's 2 places after the decimal, if you put 2 zeros in your denominator, you would set that up correctly, and then this number just becomes the numerator. One thing you do have to be sure you do is to simplify your fraction, and I would divide those both by 4 to get 18/25. Okay, there are 4 problems for you to work out. See if you can make those into fractions. Remember to put them in their simplest form. Pause this and I'll wait here for you. Okay, welcome back. 8/10, I would write as 8/10, but it needs to be simplified for our final answer of 4/5. It would not be correct to leave it as 8/10. Number 16 is 3 and 35 hundredths. So I take that 35 hundredths first, and then I simplify it to 7/20ths, but what I need to do is to not forget my whole number there. So now I'm going to write it as 3 and 7/20ths for my final answer. Number 17, 625 thousandths can be simplified all the way down to 5/8. And remember, you have to keep simplifying it until there's nothing that the numerator and denominator can both be divided by. In number 18, I have 1 and 175 thousandths. I take my fraction first and I simplify it until I get it to the very lowest form, and then don't forget to take that 1 and put it in front of your simplified fraction. Well, that's the material that we had learned for lessons 4.4 to 4.7. Please do some additional studying for that quiz, and if you need any help, let me know. Good luck.